Hi there, folks. Welcome back. In this last video, I just wanted to kind of tie up what the recovery process looks like. If we go back to our analogy of the vaccination, you've been given a shot of the anxiety, the weakened form of the thoughts that kind of plague your mind and kind of loop back and forth in the subconscious, bringing that to the forefront. And we've gone through a process in these videos, bringing them to the surface and kind of digging into some of the pain that is associated with some of these thoughts, becoming more exposed to the virus, if you will, allowing ourselves to get a little bit sick and a little bit weakened because of that, but allowing ourselves to build up the antibodies and the immunity to deal with them more properly. And so as we've done that, this last video is really talking about what does the healing process and the recovery process look like. So let me first start off by saying some observations about how that recovery looks like, and I'll use my own example to help frame that a little bit better. One of the things that's really hard about any loss is that it by nature can feel very isolating. And I recall going through loss, and if you've ever lost a loved one, this is something that you'll be able to kind of relate with really easily. It's difficult to feel connected with people who don't understand your loss. And that's why there's a sense of really wanting to be around people who kind of can commiserate and mourn with you. But when those around you don't really get it, it's just really hard. And so I remember going through my loss. And the hard thing is that a lot of people, they fear the thought of losing a kid, but they don't know how to just be around that sometimes. So there's a little bit of an awkward dance, if you will, in terms of being able to know how to be in connection with people that are going through that. And I just remember it was very difficult to recover well when feeling alone and feeling isolated, like that there's not many people around you that can really mourn with you. And so the thing about this particular situation is we're all kind of going through a sense of loss, really, but we're doing it communally. Everyone is going through maybe different kinds of loss, but we're all feeling loss as it relates to the coronavirus and how that impacts us all, and in some ways more than others. And so there's an opportunity here to do this process of inoculation, anxiety inoculation in community, because we're all experiencing it. And so one other thing I'll note about just my own example is that being in connection with other people, when you can be around people who can understand it, who can commune with you in that pain, in that suffering, in that loss, that's how healing happens. That's why mourning in a communal sense for some cultures is such an important thing, because that helps with the healing process. And so the more isolated you are, the more you stay in your own head about, okay, these are my anxieties and I don't know what to say or what to do with them, I'm just trying to work around them, the harder this is going to get, because really you're just doing it in disconnection from other people. So if you begin the vaccination process and start thinking through, I'm afraid of these things and I feel like I have no power and control of these things, and these are the things that could happen. If you allow yourself to connect with other people and to talk it through as well, and realize that maybe they're experiencing the same things as well, you begin the communal recovery. And as in connection, we begin to start building that immunity, that resiliency, to be able to withstand really hard things. And so that's one thing I'll say in this last video here of what the recovery process looks like. You don't have to go it alone. In fact, you shouldn't go at it alone. Really, if you dig into the underpinning what if scenarios and the worst case scenarios here, and you do that in connection with other people and you talk it out, that's recovery. And I will say that, I will testify that myself. A lot of my healing and my recovery was simply being able to say, okay, I need to be able to talk through some of these things, and I need to be able to do that in connection with other people. I had to do that. I was able to do that with my wife and with a few key people in my life to work through the recovery process and to heal. If you allow that to happen, that's literally how the muscles begin to rebuild, and you find yourself becoming stronger again, and you become more resilient. And here's the thing. You become more prepared for a resetting of reality, a resetting of expectations, if you will. And as I said in another video, a lot of us are suffering through the uncertainty of whether or not we're ever going to get back to normal. This whole process, if you're going through it well and you're really recovering well, resets the stage for what normal looks like. And so there's a version potentially of yourself coming out of this where you are much more prepared and much more, if I can put it this way, much more aware and attuned to the fact that life has always looked different. It might be that we're just kind of realizing, coming to grips with that, hey, we don't have nearly as much control over our lives as we think we do, and that's okay. That's normal. If you kind of think about it this way, if this may be the proverbial first world problems, if you think about for a lot of people in a lot of other cultures who who are without a lot of things. This might not be as much of a traumatic shift for them because they've always lived in a situation in life where they don't have control over a lot of things. They have to live with a lot of uncertainty. Being in a first world country like the US, for example, we are just more attuned to being able to say we have safety, we have a lot of security. And right now, all those things are being stripped away to some extent. And so the recovery process means being able to adjust ourselves to that, to adapt to that, and to reset our expectations that this is the way life has been all along. We've been just simply protected in a lot of ways from those things as well. And so that's the way I'll kind of wrap this series up by saying, hey, expose yourself to some of the underlying thoughts, the worst case scenarios here. Really dive into the underlying fears behind that and what those things could mean, and to begin to recover in connection with other people, and to begin resetting your expectation of what reality really is and what it is that life is really structured around, what really you have security and control over. If you can do those things, you will find that going through this entire process yields a much more stronger and resilient version of you, which again, in my book, is really the benefit of going through an entire process like this. And so I'm pushing these videos out in the sense of helping a lot of the community around me to take advantage of the crisis, in a sense, to take advantage of the opportunity to dig into some things that might have been holding you back from becoming a stronger, more resilient version of yourself. So I hope that makes sense. Again, do this in connection. Reach out to some of your friends. If it has to be virtually, that's fine. Reach out to us at Watershed Initiative to start talking through some of these things, and to maybe sit with one of the therapists or talking just in one of our groups to be able to interact a little bit more, just to help with that healing process. Again, I hope that helps, and I hope to see you guys in one of my other series. Thank you very much for listening.